We are going to learn how to study the Bible in the original Greek without actually having to learn the original Greek or Hebrew. And we're going to use studylight.org. This is an online tool that will get you there. And you go under the language tools, and over here under Strong's Interlinear. Interlinear means you got the original language and the English language next to it. We're going to go ahead and put in our text for today, Philippians 3, 7 through 9. You can put any text in there that you want. And what comes up is, here is the English of these verses, line by line. Here's verse 8, here's verse 9. And here is your Greek. And the fun part is, whatever you are clicking up here, say you click on the word suffered, and what it brings up, for one, is it'll highlight the equivalent Greek word down there. But then you get all the Greek information that you need. Starting with the pronunciation. So this is just to sound fancy. You click on it, and it will give you the pronunciation of it. Better than the transliteration, you get your phonetic sounding right here, zemeo. So instead of suffered, you can say zemeod, like it is here in the Greek. That's just to sound fancy. Over here is the definition of the word, and you get three different sources. Thayer's, Strong's, and Mounce are three different concordances that will give you the definition. So, to affect damage on, to sustain damage, to injure, experience detriment, forfeit, suffer loss or damage. So a lot of consistency going on here. But then over here, you get this feature of, here is how the words are translated. So when you're going into the New American Standard Bible, sometimes this word gets translated as forfeit, forfeits, loss, suffered, and these numbers tell you each time. So between suffer and suffered, that's how it's translated, 2 + 1, 3 different times. Other times, forfeit or loss is the word it uses for it. And here's what's handy, is it's telling us this word shows up in the Greek New Testament 9 different times. And so you have 9 examples that you can go off of how translators have used it. One other feature to realize with this word, as you're trying to dig a little further, and this alone is helpful in a dictionary sort of sense. So suffered, it doesn't mean that he's gone through pain. It means suffered in the sense that he's lost something. But if you want to go even further into it, this number here, every word in the Bible gets assigned one of these concordance kind of numbers to it. So this is number 2210. Originating from the word 2209, so we could click there and get more information, but we want to get right here to 2210, and when we click it, what comes up is the long version of what we just saw. So we read this from Thayer's before, just keep scrolling down to the bottom, and it's like, oh, I got page after page. Here's Thayer's longer version of what we had in short. A lot of more information on how this word is defined and what it means. Here's what I find most helpful, though, is remember how we said there were 9 different times that this word is used in the New Testament? We can look up the verse exactly. So for what is a man profited if he gains the whole world but forfeits himself? That's the same word that Paul used here in Philippians. Or if any man's work is burned up, he will suffer loss, but he himself will be saved. It's used twice in the book of Philippians. Look, it's both used in the same verse here. So being able to see the exact verses where this is used elsewhere in the Bible, that can come in really handy, in addition to those extra definitions. All right, let's try it with another one. Here's an interesting one that people like to gravitate towards. The word rubbish, or garbage in some translations, skubalon. is how it gets phonetically spelled. The definition: any refuse as excrement from animals, rubbish, dregs. What's kind of interesting from that is, you know, the translators wimped out a bit. They didn't want to say dog crap in the Bible. Instead, they said rubbish or garbage. It was just kind of safer that way. What makes the word a little difficult to follow is how many times is it used? Just one. So we don't get this example anywhere else in the scripture to compare it to. And that's why your translators are going to have a lot of different variations that they put on this one. Let's go to a word that is used more. Like if we scroll down, I'm guessing righteousness is used a little more often. Sure enough, 91 times in the scriptures we get the word righteous. It's translated as righteousness 8 times, right once, and righteousness 82 times. So again, we could click here if we wanted the longer Sure, let's go for it. The longer definition of word. First of all, the short definition is, in a broad sense, it's a state of things being as they ought, being right, and in a condition acceptable to God. But if we click on the longer version, here's the short version again. We get a little more connection. Where is it here? Well, lots of pages here. But it will start talking about the law of God, and that being a definition. And so you just get a lot more filled in. With 91 different times, I don't think we're going to go through the whole of Scripture, but it's kind of fun to see where's the word righteousness really loaded up. It's in the book of Romans. That's where that theology of righteousness is developed. It's mentioned only once in Luke, 7 times in Matthew. That's a lot, but man, Romans is really where this thought gets developed. It's something that Paul was really concerned about. All right, so far all we've done, really, it's something that you could do with any concordance. Aside from learning the pronunciation, we haven't done much in Greek itself. The real value of the Greek language, or where things really can open up, is the verbs, not the nouns. The nouns, it's just kind of like looking at a dictionary. And I'm going to illustrate this with you with a seemingly not much there kind of sentence. So, but whatever things were gained to me, those things I have counted it as loss for the sake of Christ. At face value, we understand this. This makes enough sense. We wouldn't be led to dig into any one particular word. However, if you're really fishing for as much depth as you can, you want to go after the verbs. And these numbers here indicate that the word right before it is a verb. So I'm going to click on it, and you'll notice that this, it's hard to point to it, but right here under your lexical parser pops up when you go into a verb all the different tense and modes that go into it. So you are finding that this is in the imperfect tense, active voice, indicative mood, and third person singular after that. What the heck does any of that mean? Well, you just click on the number next to it and it's going to start to define it. Imperfect tense generally represents the continual or repeated action. So it's not stuck in the past, it's not waiting for it in the future, it's something that is actively going on. That kind of helps. So when really we're dealing with the word were here, but whatever things were gained to me, he's looking back at this as like, this is just like an ongoing posture, that it wasn't stuck in the past. This is how people like me think, that these, whatever these things were, it's an imperfect tense. It's an ongoing kind of thing. This is a perspective that we thought these things were gained. Now, the middle voice, normally it's either an active or a passive voice. In other words, it's either something that Paul is doing or something being done to him But the middle voice is saying that this is something he is doing upon himself. So he's stuck in his own head. He was in this mindset that all these other accreditations were a gain to him in previous verses. That's kind of an important clue to what we're talking about here. And indicative is the most common mood that's used. It's just saying that it happened. It's not a possibility of happening. It's not an imperative that it has to happen. It did just happen. And then, if we were to hover over this again, the third person singular kind of helps too, where he's speaking in the third person right now of, this is broader than just me. This is any me. This is anyone. In a sense, it's all of us, but in a very individual way, all of us are doing this to ourselves, that we think that stuff is gain. So hopefully you're seeing, man, this is just exploding with meaning when you dig into a verb in the Greek. All we get in English is were. But man, there's a lot more loaded there. Same sentence here. There's a second verb. So let's go over there. And I don't know why it says no tense stated here, because if we click on the number right next to it, it is the perfect tense. Meaning that this is completed with some ongoing results. So it happened, it's done, but it's not done in the sense that the effects of it keep going. And so in context here, it's the word counted we're dealing with, and counted as loss for the sake of Christ. Man, what Christ did in the past has this ongoing fresh results, active and alive every single day, even though that which Christ did for me is completely done. Nothing more needs to be added to it. So already you're catching just the value that can be added to this word. Dig a little bit further. The middle voice is being used again here. The middle voice is being used, and so it's that internal dialogue again. This is a perspective that he is needing to hold in and of himself. Indicative, again, it just happened, but this time it's first person. You'll see here under the lexical parser, first person instead of third person, meaning this is his push this time. Whereas in the first verb, it was all about this could be anyone. This is me. This is what I'm doing. I'm telling you that I am the one who's holding to that which Christ did for me in the past, having the present results to me for ongoing. And again, simple words like were and counted, just exploding with meaning when you get into the Greek. So really, when you're doing your Greek study, although the nouns are kind of interesting to get a little more information on what things could mean and what the definition is, it's really the verbs you're going after. And looking for these numbers, because every number indicates here's a verb that's going to pop up right just before it. And you're not looking for the definition for the verb as much as you are that parser that pops up. And the beautiful thing is you don't have to remember any of these tense, mood, voice sort of things, because when you click on that number, it's going to come up for you every time.